Hello, I'm Barry Shreiar, President, the Army and Navy Academy. And I'm here today with Brad Larsen. Brad is an Army and Navy graduate, class of 1972. And Brad's really been our historian for decades now. Our museum is in no small part, and frankly, almost all due to the labors of Brad Larsen. And actually, Brad, I want to start with a question about our museum and our history, because you've chased our history for decades as sort of as just an interest and avocation. I want to ask you a little bit about what might have been behind that and your desire to continue to do that.
Well, I think I kind of backed into this kind of thing. Being in a family business, my great-grandfather started the business. And there were all these old pictures of Mac and Mabel, his wife, and all this memorabilia from the business. The livestock auction had a lot of pictures of film of animals and auctioneers. And I have a gavel collection that auctioneers use at the auctions. And I backed into it because being a historian sounds like a boring thing. You would think I should be a woman in a black outfit, with horn-rimmed glasses. And it's me. It's not that. But it just kind of fell into my lap, and I started to enjoy it. I started doing it for the family business, and I have a whole archive of family stuff. And then I started doing it with my academy stuff. I had a bunch of academy stuff when I was here. I threw it up on the wall, and I had shown a few people the wall of shame that I have. And somebody said, God, look at this museum, and I went and looked at it. It was horrible. Mushrooms were growing. Well, I don't want to say how horrible it is because this is Army Navy Academy. Nothing's ever bad. But I backed into it, and it's something I kind of come by naturally now. And I've learned to enjoy it, although I never thought I would.
So today, when you talk to the cadets, it was a beautiful discussion. The boys absolutely literally jumped out of their chairs. They were thrilled by your talk. But one of the boys asked you, and this is not an uncommon theme, one of the boys asked, hey, if you could do things differently. Now, you were a lifer. You were here, which means you were here for 6 years, right? And if you could do things differently, what would you do differently? And I thought your answer, which ironically came very close to the end. It was so fitting that it summed things up. But I'd like you to share your answer about what would you do differently, and how that process of you thinking through that. You had a very immediate answer, but over time, how you came to understand what you would do differently.
Well, I think it's being a lifer that kind of created the situation I was in. I was here for such a long period of time and came at a very young age when you're not that aggressive, you're not that confident. And when you're in the middle school, you're just kind of getting by and not getting too much trouble from the upperclassmen. You kind of go into the radar. And it seemed like that kind of feeling prevailed through my whole time here, just like, do what you have to do. And what you do, what I did well, but I didn't do near as much as I could. And that was the answer I shared. I would have done more sports. I would have done more clubs. I would have gone on more of the trips. And, and I didn't. It was just easier not to. And that's the mentality of a young kid. And even telling them to do more, I hope it registers, but, these things didn't register to me until later in life either. So you got to tell them, at least you tell them, and then you see what happens.
Often when our alumni come to speak, they say on a very regular basis, I don't think I've ever been around one that hasn't mentioned this in some way. They said, you really want, and you mentioned it today, you won't realize all of the things that you were able to get from the experience of being here at the academy until sometime in the future. You really have to remove yourself from the rigor of the day-to-day aspects of it to really get some clarity. And you shared that today. I think it'd be great for you to expand on this idea of how that works, how it comes to you, that this real foundational opportunity.
Well, that's the kind of thing that comes with reflection in life. And you got to have time to reflect. And so I'd say for 20 years out, I didn't reflect on this stuff. My plate was full every single second. It's like your schedule. I see, you're in a meeting all the time. You're always in motion. And I used to be that way too. And I retired as early as I could. Maybe that's a symbol of what I did here at the academy, because I didn't really want to keep working. I had enough money.
Right.
I didn't want to keep working. And sometimes I look back on that and say, I could have another couple $1,000,000 easy in cash if I would have done it. And I could have bought that house, or, I could go ahead and buy that car tomorrow instead of waiting a week or two or a month or a year. And so, it's human nature. But unfortunately, it comes late, and if we could accelerate that curve by giving the information to the kids, think about it, get them back on campus to think about giving back and coming to campus, they might come to the realization sooner. But most people didn't do it until they had time to reflect, and that usually comes later in life.
There was a great story you told today that I think was pretty compelling to the boys I was watching. And you said, you set goals for yourself, which I thought was so meaningful for the boys to hear. You said, look, I was 17 years old and I graduated from here. And I said to myself, by the time I'm 21 years old, I'm going to be a millionaire. And you told the boys 2 days before you turned 21. You turned 21 in 1976, right? This is quite some time ago. You were a millionaire. And I thought that was riveting to the boys, and you could see it in their face. They said, but there was such a tremendous lesson about you saying, look, I had a goal. I put my mind to it. I made it happen. And you made it pretty clear to them. There was long days. You worked.
Yeah, I didn't take a vacation the whole time. And a family business, the more I worked, the more money I made.
Yeah.
It was almost addictive. And long days, and, there was downfalls to that too. When you have a family, you don't spend as much time with the kids if you're working all the time. But yeah, that was a financial goal, and I wish I had something more etherical to share with them, But yeah, that was a financial goal, and I was able to make it. And I didn't tell them about the party afterwards when I achieved the goal.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
they didn't need to hear that.
I don't know if you want to share it now, but you did leave it out in your talk.
It was at a bar called Magnolia's Peach. It was one of the nicest bars in the Inland Empire. And I drove my Mercedes up there and met all the nice cars parked in front. And my buddies were doing good too. And, it was the best bar around. Better than the bar I built, my business.
And I thought what was really helpful was that your talk today, when you were talking about these different elements of virtue, it was very accessible to the boys. They understood that that you enjoyed yourself, you worked hard here, but you had a seriousness about you, and I think you gave them this impression. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but that you gave the impression that, look, there's a lot of foundational opportunity. And one of the things we do here, one of the things you're good at, is being able to apply yourself to things and be successful. But because you've done it, you had that experience here, and I think that came across to the boys in both subtly and loudly, of just saying, look, we do that. We speak about it. You see it when you move through rank, when you're moving through this campus with different levels of leadership. I think the boys understood that from you. Tell me if you think that there was a particular piece of that lesson that you think really may have hit home.
Oh, I hope so. I definitely hope so. Because with me, and I think most people, success begets success.
Right.
And you talk about the kids moving up through the ranks. You get some more rank, you want more rank.
Right.
It's just the way it is. So once I had a taste of success, it was just, you might say, intoxicating. That's how you become a workaholic, perhaps.
Right.
And I was probably guilty of that. But it's something I enjoy sharing, because it's amazing what you can do. Some people never get the opportunity to go out and really have a success at something. Maybe they don't have the desire. I don't know. I'm only me. But I hope it did come across, because I wanted it to.
I think it did, and I think in some of the comments you heard from the boys personally as they were leaving, they very much appreciated. And Brad, you're a good storyteller. The boys appreciated that, and it's funny. They very clearly now you've been a graduate of from here in some 50 years. And but they see you as their brother. It was evident today that was meaningful.
Yeah, I felt it too. Looking out there, I see these guys, and it's just like I'm transported back. I know what they're thinking, and I'm glad that they probably just weren't looking at an old man standing up there, because the age thing is there, but I don't feel it when I'm here. And hopefully when I'm telling them a story, it's just like being a friend to them, telling them a story. That's the way I put myself. I don't put myself, up there. There's no point in that.
You succeeded at that. Let me ask you a question about when you come back here. Because you get a chance, you live relatively close to here. You're in Orange County, California. And so you get to come back. You've spent a lot of time on campus, like I had mentioned earlier, with respect to our beautification. We can't thank you enough for that. But I'd like you to, as the cadets look back on this discussion, when you come back here, are you transported? Sometimes is it 1970 again? And you're a sophomore?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a graduate that's maybe still here at school. I call this place my time machine. Nice. And there's a couple of places on campus that actually function as a time machine for me, because they have such a strong impression, the physical makeup. Going in Davis Hall, almost center court, little off center, I get that feeling. And I got it first years ago when the lights were off and I was walking across in the dark, and I was going to look at the senior posters. And I got halfway across in the dark and I stopped. And I had this just feeling overcome me that I was back there like in my sweats and going to play basketball or something. It was deja vu of a different nature, because, of course, I was here before. But it's my time machine. Davis Hall is number 1, Fagan number 2, the chapel number 3.
That's been
lesser magnetic forces, or whatever it is.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that might be true for a lot of alumni.
Yeah.
Because this is home. This is a place that you lived at. And that gives it that extra oomph that I lived here. This was my home for 6 years. How many people live in the same house for 6 years?
Right.
Old timers, maybe a lot, older people, but younger people are moving all the time, upwardly mobile or down, whatever it is. They don't, and the family home's not accessible anymore. Very few people have it. I have all those things. I have the home. I live in part-time the home that I was potty trained in Chino by my grandfather. Family home is still there. This is still here. That's maybe why I get stuck in history in a certain way, because it's just so up and still in my face. And this place is definitely, I hope we don't change it too much. The beautification is intended to make it more beautiful, not different for the sake of difference.
Yeah. I think we've done a nice job of.
Oh, you guys have done such good work since you've been installed as president that I don't need to come down much. Between you and Frank, you know what needs to be done. I didn't really have an ear with prior administrations,
right?
And I kind of would twist them a little bit, and they'd say, "What? What do you want to do?" "Yeah, I want to paint everything." The paint's falling off. That's what I want to do. Like, really? You get that feeling like you don't see it. But you guys get it. You guys get it. I don't worry about it.
We get a little numb. We know how that we're literally on the ocean, and what that does to everything, right? And maintenance in areas like that, homes, schools, are just incredibly difficult. And you get a little bit into malaise, and sometimes you're just too familiar and you don't see it. But it's great to have someone who'll say, no, let's look, we make a statement to our boys about their appearance, and we obviously have to continue to make that statement wherever we can about ourselves and our physical appearance too, right? I mean, I want to really return to a comment you made that I think the boys heard, but it rang incredibly loud to me. And that is, you talked to the boys. I'll let you tell the story about when the day you left the academy. You graduated, you jumped in your car, which the car you were given as a gift as for graduation, and you went what you thought was home. I want you to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, I guess the short version is I was so anxious to get out of here and go home that I kind of lost sight of everything else. It's like the countdown clock you have here.
Right.
I mean, it's as if you were staring at the countdown clock all the time and forgot to go do something while you're here. And so when I left here, I was so thrilled, and driving the new car home, the 280 SL Mercedes Roadster with the top down. and listening to music. It was just a thrill all the way till I got home. And then I think I mentioned the refrigerator full of beer as a gift. And on the second beer, I had a shock kind of hit me that I wasn't home. Everybody was gone. All my friends were gone. Even the people I didn't like were gone. And I kind of liked the guys I didn't like in a way because you could count on them like clockwork to annoy you. And I even missed that. And so it hit me. Yeah. After the happiest day of my life for a little while, I was very sad that I left my home. I didn't realize I left my home. That's the way you summed it up was correct. I had left my home. I wasn't going home.
Yeah, that was very moving to me, that I wasn't going home. I was leaving my home. I hadn't heard it put like that.
Never crossed my mind. Probably didn't cross anybody's mind.
Yeah, I don't think it has. And not mine, and having had my son go to school here for 5 years, he feels that way. He does. When he comes back here now, it's automatic. You can see it. He graduated almost 12 years ago now, right? So he's been off the campus for 12 years, not as many as close to 50, but you see it. And you see that when the alumni are here, how it's fish to water, right? They just take to it immediately. And what it speaks to is how meaningful that experience can be, and how comforting it can be to get it back.
Yeah, I talked to my wife about it, and she sees it. And I've gone to one of her class reunions. She doesn't care about her high school. She went to Claremont High School, public school, very good, very progressive and modern. College system, one of the first ones. Claremont, the college is up in Claremont, not San Diego, Claremont. And super school, she could care less. There's nothing. And there was 400 people in her graduating class. I went to the reunion. She barely knew or could recognize anybody. Nobody really knew anybody when they were going to school because they were on a modular system. So different, so different. So again, the opportunity that we give here at this place is something that's really hard to find, I think.
Well, today was Brad Larsen Day. And Brad, on a personal note, I can't tell you how much I thank you for what you've done for me personally and helping me here, and what you do for these boys every day behind the scenes. You never ask for an ounce of recognition. You just continue to make this place better and make other people's lives better behind the scene. And they do recognize it after the fact. And every one of these boys for decades now has been made better because of all the efforts that you've put into this place. It will never be forgotten. What you do is incredibly special. Thank you for what you do.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, it's like the success begets success thing. When you're doing for others, you get back more. The old saying, giving is better than receiving. That's just something you hear growing up, you think. But when you get to experience it, it's pretty sweet.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.